The topic of cancer, the conversation around it. To be honest, it can be a really difficult one to navigate and to talk about. Pretty much anyone that I know in my life has been affected by cancer, either through a loved one, a friend, or themselves. And I'm no stranger to it either, as you'll know. I've talked about this. In recent months, kind of on and off, the fact that my mother-in-law, who I call mum, has terminal lung cancer. So it's a journey for me that I'm going on, just living through it and experiencing it with mum. And so I think you'll appreciate why, whenever I hear about events that are taking place in London, yes, my ears do perk up because I want to understand the ways in which Londoners are coping with something like cancer, what it's like navigating life, but also the conversations that we are having. And if you feel up for it and you'd like to talk to me, please do give me a call. 0800 731 2000 is the number, which is why I really was chuffed, I have to say, when earlier on in the show I was joined with Indian actress, Bollywood icon Manisha Koiraala, because she wanted to talk about her personal journey. Manisha was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2012, and since then, she's been on a bit of a mission, actually. She talks openly about the emotional, physical toll of her illness. She's actually going to be here in London on Sunday, on Sunday evening at the Shaw Theatre, where she will be talking about her personal journey. It's called An Audience with Manisha Koiraala. She'll be speaking to Dr. Amir Khan. Of course, we all know him. Fantastic TV doctor on Lorraine. And when I spoke to her earlier on in the show, I really wanted to get more of an understanding, and she talked about how difficult it was for her to find supportive stories to help her through the earlier days of her diagnosis of cancer.
I was hunting a lot for some hopeful stories, something to fall back on, to, cling on to in such a dark time. There were very few. Actually, I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
And that's when I promised myself that if I ever get chance to second chance to life again, I would talk about having hope, and I'll give hope to many people, and I'll speak openly about I discovered that this journey is so scary and it's so tough that a lot of people who recover also don't want to be reminded and talk about it.
That's quite something, isn't it? Part of that conversation for me on the afternoon show today is what impact can public figures or celebrities speaking up, raising awareness have on people and organisations that are quite literally doing the research around cancer, fighting cancer, supporting families living with cancer. I remember years ago, it's so vivid in my mind, Jade Goody, of course, Londoner from Essex, and when she was doing as many interviews as she could, talking about her cancer journey, really trying to spread awareness as she was diagnosed with cervical cancer, and the surge, in fact, of women who were going to their GPs to get tested. Well, similarly, this week we've heard from Jessie J, as she has shared the results from tests following her surgery to remove one of her breasts after an early cancer diagnosis have showed no spread of the disease. But again, we've seen many of us talking about it. And I'm joined on the line now with Caroline Geraghty, who is Senior Cancer Information Nurse at Cancer Research UK. Caroline, it's great to have you here on BBC Radio London. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks. It's Geraghty, by the way.
Geraghty, my apologies.
Sorry. It's all right, Ger. It's a hard Ger.
Thank you for talking to me. How much of an effect do you think, I've mentioned some famous names there, can have of people, public figures, celebrities speaking about their experience of cancer? Does it help in changing perhaps public's perception of cancer?
I think it does. I think it does for many people. It's not going to change everybody, but I think the majority of people will feel, cancer can affect anyone. And this is what it shows. It doesn't matter who you are, what class you are, what job you do, how much money you earn, cancer can affect you. And that really brings it home to you. And I think people talking openly, if they can, hopefully will find it therapeutic themselves, being able to share their story and what's happening with them, but people hearing it and perhaps making them aware, look, this could happen to me, and it's so important that if I have symptoms, I also go to my GP and I get sorted out. But also for people going through a rough time, knowing that somebody else is going through it. Although I should say that no two people go through the same experience, even if you're having the same treatment for the same cancer. It's very, very different for many people. But to feel akin to somebody like that, I'm sure is helpful.
I mentioned in my introduction there, Caroline, Jessie J, she's a Londoner earlier, and I was talking about my own personal experience. I remember very vividly of Jade Goody and the impact that I would say actually that the long-lasting impact that her campaigning has done for many women, just around raising awareness of cancer. But have you heard of patients feeling supported enough or maybe even brave enough to go to their doctor because symptoms that they've heard a celebrity talking about in the news or telly has then prompted them, if you see what I mean, to go and seek help?
Oh, definitely it has. But also, I think it can also some people might worry unnecessarily or feel that, something they've got or, symptoms they've got isn't worth discussing with their GP. It always really, really is. I speak to people on the telephone a lot. People will ring us and they ring us anonymously. And I know people are going to their GP because they're worried that the symptoms they have are cancer. I can't say that exactly how many of them are directly affected by somebody, famous saying they've got it. But you feel that sea change. You do feel it, and you feel that people are more open and more ready to talk about it.
Why do you think there is still this difficulty, or I don't know, even maybe is the word taboo around openly discussing, cancer in whatever diagnosis that a person may receive it? Is there still a real taboo around that?
There is for some people, and a lot of it can be to do with how you've coped with cancer in your family before or with friends. And I think in families as well, because I don't think there's a family in the world that isn't affected by cancer in some way or another. It could be close relatives, it could be relatives that were, your grandmother. And I think that can also, affect the way that you're going to talk about it and cope with it. We know that with some, people from different communities might find it difficult to talk about cancer as well, and to even go to their GP with symptoms. And I think that a lot of work needs to be done about that and about bringing everybody together to say, look, it's okay if you've got something wrong, see your GP, because the earlier you get it seen to, if you do have cancer. And let's face it, the majority of people go with symptoms will find that they don't have cancer, thankfully, but there will be some that do. And the earlier you go, the more successfully it can be treated. But it's
to interject there. I'm just thinking of Dame Deborah James, also, from London, and she was diagnosed with bowel cancer.
She really broke it.
She did, didn't she? She was so open, and she just kind of this whole big taboo around, checking your poo. As I remember her saying, look, I even remember it now. It really made a change, I think, with Dame Deborah James and the way that she was so open around her diagnosis, living with bowel cancer, and what we all need to be doing.
So her legacy, the Bowel Babe Fund, is very much up and running, and it's a really important part of what we do at CR UK. And absolutely, it's about you don't try and become too prescriptive and try and think of very specific side effects. It's about knowing what's normal for you, and then if something goes wrong, you know it. So it could be an area on your skin. You think, well, I never had that a few weeks ago. I wonder if that's anything to be worried about. Bleeding, any episode of bleeding, even if it's just a one-off episode, needs to be reported to your GP. No matter where it's come from, it's important that you talk about it, and it gets investigated if it's needed. So I think, it's with Deborah, she really she kind of brought joy in knowing about it, and she she I won't say she brought fun into it, but she did in a way because she allowed, and I think that helps break taboos, doesn't it?
I think so. Gosh, her
really
videos, where she was doing having her treatment in hospital and dancing away, doing chemotherapy, and I think you're right. Actually, it did bring joy. Where, frankly speaking, sometimes you don't. I mentioned earlier on the fact that my mother-in-law, who I call Mum, is currently going through chemotherapy, and I've been really brutally honest with you, Caroline. There is no joy in it at all. It is brutal watching a loved one going through that. But I just remember vividly, and in fact, I've even shown Mum Dame Deborah James videos of just kind of still finding those moments of joy. It's quite something what she achieved.
It is, but you're absolutely right. While some people will find that motivating and the right, that is absolutely right. For some people, it isn't. Absolutely. And we know people, particularly the older generation, may not really appreciate that and may not appreciate necessarily the humour of it. Some people will struggle, and it really doesn't matter how many stories are out there in the press or in the media or in social media. That many people will struggle, and we've got to remember that for them it is possibly a tougher time. But there is support out there, and as you know, and you probably know this with your mum, she has with her hospital team. She has a clinical nurse specialist.
That's right.
Who's there? Bridges the gap between. I always say bridges the gap between hospital and home and the GP, and helps.
Gosh, they become like family. Sometimes I'll say something and Mum won't listen, and then I won't say the nurse's name just to protect her privacy, but she'll say it, and Mum will say, oh, okay, and I'm like, Mum, you're listening to her. But it's that they do become like an extended part of your family, actually. I think a lot of the medical professionals that you're talking to, because you're speaking to them day in, day out, aren't you?
And of course, people can contact us on our helpline. They can speak to a nurse anonymously, because some people want that. They don't want to be talking to their health team. They want to ask questions of somebody else. And there's online forums that people find really useful. Cancer Chat, for example, have one where it's a community that come together and support people, and where you can really talk to people who are affected by cancer themselves.
Such a pleasure having you here on the show, Caroline. I suspect we will be talking again for sure. Thank you for joining me here on BBC Radio London today.